In this video, sometimes choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's the first step toward real peace.
Sometimes a story doesn't begin with love. Sometimes it begins with someone quietly trying to escape it. The wedding hall was beautiful, golden lights, soft music, white flowers everywhere, but inside Alina's chest there was only heaviness. The veil brushed against her cheeks, her hands trembled around the bouquet, and while everyone smiled with hope, her heart whispered again and again, "This is not your life. This is not your path." The groom looked perfect on paper, powerful, admired, safe, yet his eyes had never truly seen her. He loved control, not connection, and as she walked forward, something deep inside finally broke. Her breath tightened, the room blurred, voices turned distant. In one sudden moment of clarity, she turned away from the aisle and ran. Her heels hit the marble floor, her veil snagged on her shoulder, and someone shouted her name behind her, but inside there was only silence. Not peaceful silence, storm silence. She didn't know where to go, only that she had to leave before this life closed around her forever. She reached the elevator lobby, cool and silver-lit, and when the doors slid open with a soft sigh, she stepped inside without looking. She didn't realize there was already someone standing quietly in the corner. The doors closed, the air shifted. The elevator hummed upward, yet everything felt strangely still, as if time itself had paused. Alina leaned against the mirrored wall, trying not to cry, pretending she was invisible. Then a calm, deep voice spoke. "You are running from something that wants to own you, but not everything that chases you deserves your fear." She froze and slowly looked up. The man wore black, his long coat like night draped over his shoulders. His presence was quiet, controlled, ancient. His eyes were winter-colored, distant, thoughtful, carrying centuries of memory, and yet there was undeniable kindness hidden there. He did not feel dangerous. He felt careful. She whispered she hadn't seen him, and he answered softly that most people don't, not until they truly need to. His words settled into the silence like truth. Then he said something that pierced straight into her heart. This was not her wedding day, this was her escape. She stared stunned. How could he know? When she asked who he was, he hesitated as if his name carried weight. Finally, gently, he said, "King Arian, the vampire king." The air cooled slightly like midnight whispering through trees. Fear brushed her thoughts, but his presence stayed gentle, patient, almost protective. "If I wished to harm you," he said quietly, "fear would already be too late, and yet you are untouched." She asked why he was there, and he spoke of destiny, of doors opening at strange moments. Then his voice softened more, telling her she had been about to give away her life not for love, but for silence, for peace, to avoid disappointing others. Tears filled her eyes because he was right. She admitted she didn't want to let everyone down. He answered with compassion. Real love is never a cage, and sometimes courage is simply a woman in a wedding dress pressing the elevator button with shaking hands. The elevator stopped, but the doors did not open. Silence wrapped around them. The world outside felt gone. Arian listened, head tilted slightly, then said the elevator wasn't broken, it was waiting, waiting for a choice. He told her that all her life had been written by others, family, expectations, pressure, and sooner or later life asks, "Who are you if no one else decides for you?" Her tears fell freely now. When she whispered she didn't know who she was, he stepped closer, slowly, respectfully, leaving space, and said today was not the day she married. Today was the day she began to discover herself. Warmth moved through her chest, mixed with fear and relief. But above them, someone tried to override the elevator. It began rising again, taking her back toward the ceremony. Panic flooded through her. She begged not to return. Arian turned calmly toward the doors and said she would not. He touched the wall with quiet authority, not force, and the elevator slowed, then stopped between floors. Everything fell silent again. She was stunned. He simply said that some doors obey strength, but wiser doors obey restraint. Then something subtle filled the air, not sound, not movement, simply a presence. Gentle, warm, calling her without words. Arian asked if she felt it. She nodded through tears. He said it was the beginning, the moment life asks whether she would finally live for herself. When she asked what would happen if she chose wrong, he replied gently that life would keep bringing her back to the same pain until she chose herself. She opened her mouth to finally speak the truth she had buried for years, and just then the elevator doors slowly slid open. But instead of the wedding floor, a corridor of ancient stone appeared. Blue torches flickered along the walls. Shadows stretched out like a path into the unknown. It did not look threatening, it looked like fate waiting patiently. Trembling, she asked what he had done. Arian looked almost sorrowful and whispered that he had not opened it. The doors continued to open wider, and the unseen world ahead seemed to quietly call her name. The corridor beyond the elevator looked like it belonged to another world, ancient stone, soft blue torches, walls breathing quiet history. Alina stood frozen at the threshold, trapped between two lives. Behind her waited the wedding she had run from. Ahead of her waited something unknown, mysterious, unreal, and strangely peaceful. Her fingers tightened around the bouquet until petals bent beneath her grip. The air carried a faint scent of rain and old stories, and somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered that this place did not want to hurt her. It wanted to show her something. Arian watched her gently, not pushing, not guiding, simply standing as someone who understood crossroads. His face held that same quiet sadness, like a man who had walked through too many doors and lost too much along the way. This place answers questions people are too afraid to ask, he said softly. It appears only when a heart is standing between obedience and truth. She swallowed hard, every part of her body trembled, but not with fear, with awareness, with awakening. She took one careful step forward, then another, leaving the elevator behind as the doors stayed open, silently waiting. The stone beneath her shoes felt cool, almost alive. The torches flickered gently when she passed, as if recognizing her. Somewhere far, far behind, she imagined people searching for her, confusion, anger, whispered gossip, but here there was only stillness. She finally turned to him. Why am I seeing this? Arian walked beside her, keeping the same respectful distance, as though proximity itself was something sacred. Because for the first time, he answered, you stopped pretending to be happy. Oh, the words landed deep, and she exhaled shakily, realizing how long she had been performing a life that didn't belong to her. They walked in silence for a while, the corridor stretching endlessly, yet not feeling threatening. Instead, it felt like a safe place where truth could breathe. You said someone once chose your life for you, she whispered, curiosity mixing with compassion. A faint shadow crossed his expression. I was born into a crown, he said quietly, but a crown is only heavy when worn for the wrong reasons. His voice softened further. I loved peace, they demanded power. I wanted mercy, they demanded fear. And instead of running, as you did, I obeyed. There was no bitterness in his tone, only regret shaped into wisdom. Alina listened closely. It felt strange, comforting to know even a vampire king carried wounds. And what happened? She asked gently. He paused, eyes drifting to the flames. I became exactly what they needed, and in the process, I lost the part of myself that could feel sunlight without guilt. For a moment, she saw the boy he once must have been, hopeful, kind, before responsibility carved silence into his heart. She didn't see a monster. She saw someone who had suffered quietly and learned to walk softly, so he would never hurt others the way he had been hurt. Ahead of them, the corridor opened into a vast hall, high ceilings, arches of stone, and in the center, a calm pool of dark water reflecting the flames like stars. The surface was perfectly still. The air felt sacred. Arian stopped at the edge and nodded toward the water. This place does not show the future, he explained. It shows the truth we hide from ourselves. Alina's chest tightened. Truth sounded beautiful, but also terrifying. She knelt beside the pool, her reflection trembling in the ripples of torchlight. At first, she only saw herself in the wedding dress, pale, sad, tired. Then the water shifted. She saw another version of herself, standing tall, laughing freely, dressed simply, surrounded by warmth, not luxury. There was no groom, no pressure, no eyes watching, only peace and self-respect. That image glowed gently, then faded, replaced by a different vision. This time she stood beside the man she had almost married. Her smile looked forced. Her eyes were quiet and empty. She moved carefully, politely, shrinking herself again and again until she barely existed. Her throat closed. She wanted to look away, but the pool would not let her. Tears rolled silently down her face. I was going to disappear, she whispered. Arian's voice was calm and compassionate. Yes, and the world would have called it sacrifice. They would have praised your silence while slowly forgetting your heart. His words hurt not because they were cruel, but because they were honest. She finally understood that running wasn't selfish. Running had been the first brave thing she had done in years. She wiped her tears with shaking hands. What if they hate me? She asked softly. What if they never forgive me? Arian looked at her gently. Forgiveness from others matters less than forgiveness from yourself. The pool slowly went still again, as if satisfied. The hall felt warmer somehow. For a brief moment, she felt lighter, not completely free, but no longer trapped. She turned toward him. Why help me? She asked again, more quietly this time. His gaze softened, and there was something almost human in it. Because every life I failed to save once echoes inside me, he murmured. And because kindness costs me nothing. Oh, the way he said it, without pride, without darkness, made her heart ache in a way she didn't expect. He was powerful, yes, but he chose gentleness. That was his true strength. Before she could speak, the ground beneath them vibrated softly like a distant storm waking. The torches flickered. Somewhere behind them, the corridor darkened. Arian's face changed, alert, controlled, protective. They found the elevator, he said quietly, and they are trying to pull you back. Fear crawled up her spine. She looked toward the long passage they had walked through. Shadows thickened, stretching like hands. The peaceful hall suddenly felt fragile, as if it existed only as long as her courage did. Well, what happens if they succeed? She whispered. His answer was simple and it hurt. You will return to the ceremony, you will smile, you will say yes, and one day when you are alone, you will wonder where your real life went. Her breath shook, the vibrations grew stronger. Somewhere faintly, she heard her name echo, distant, demanding, desperate. The corridor pulsed with pressure, as if reality itself wanted to close the door she had opened. Arian stepped closer, not touching, but standing between her and the darkening passage like a silent shield. Listen to me, he said gently yet firmly. This is the last time the door opens without consequence. If you choose your freedom now, the path ahead will be uncertain, but it will be yours. If you go back, everything will be decided for you. Her heart hammered painfully. The pool began to shimmer again, showing only darkness now, as if refusing to guide her further until she chose. The hall trembled. The torches dimmed. And from the corridor behind them, a rush of cold air swept in, carrying voices, footsteps, the sound of a world determined to claim her again. Alina looked at Arian, eyes wide, tears burning. I don't know if I'm strong enough, she whispered, voice breaking. Well, he met her gaze, steady, compassionate, unwavering. Strength, he said softly, is not knowing the way. It is taking the step anyway. The vibrations surged louder now, more urgent, and the corridor behind them suddenly glowed with harsh white light, like the wedding hall forcing its way into this sacred place. The air shattered with a sharp crack. The ancient hall began to fracture at the edges. And before Alina could speak, before she could choose, the elevator doors behind them slammed shut on their own, and disappeared, leaving her trapped in the Vampire King's world. With no visible way back for a long moment, there was only silence. The hall that once felt sacred now felt unreal, like a dream struggling to hold itself together. The place where the elevator had been was now nothing more than smooth stone. No doors, no seam, no way back. Alina's breath trembled as she turned slowly in a circle, searching, hoping, refusing to believe she was truly trapped. Fear rose quietly through her chest, not the wild, screaming kind, but the deep, heavy fear that comes when the world suddenly stops obeying its own rules. Arian watched her carefully. He did not rush toward her. He didn't overwhelm her with comfort. Instead, he gave her space, honoring the shock settling inside her bones. Breathe, he said softly. Panic builds walls faster than courage breaks them. His voice was calm, almost like a warm hand held out across a storm, and even though the situation was terrifying, something inside her trusted him. She pressed a hand to her heart, breathing slowly until the room steadied again. It's gone, she whispered. My whole world vanished. He nodded gently. Worlds don't disappear, he replied quietly. They simply wait. She fell silent. Part of her wanted to blame him, accuse him, demand answers. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw honesty. He was as surprised as she was, and yet, unlike her, he did not fear it. He had walked through too many strange doors to be afraid of the unknown. They stepped away from the fractured edges of the hall, and the torches brightened again, as if responding to calm instead of panic. A faint echo moved through the corridor, not threatening, just distant, like wind traveling through an ancient cathedral. Where are we? She asked softly. Arian's gaze wandered over the stone arches with something close to tenderness. Between what was, he said, and what might become, my world exists in the spaces people refuse to see. They began walking again, slowly, quietly, and as they did, the stone walls changed. Carvings appeared where there had been none. Gentle scenes etched into the rock, people choosing roads, people breaking chains, people standing at crossroads holding their own hearts in their hands. Alina reached out, brushing her fingers over one carving of a woman dropping a heavy crown at her feet. The stone beneath her fingertips felt warm, alive, almost grateful. She swallowed. Does everyone come here? Arian shook his head. No, most people never dare question the lives handed to them. They stay, they silence themselves, and the door never opens. His voice softened with quiet sadness. You walked, and because you walked, the path unfolded. There was no pride in his words, only quiet respect. For the first time in her life, someone saw her bravery without turning it into a lesson or a burden. That recognition alone felt healing. As they continued deeper, the space around them shifted. The stone walls gave way to open sky, a twilight horizon stretching endlessly, filled with soft stars and slow-moving clouds. It didn't feel like night or day, it felt like a pause between both. In the center stood a long bridge made of glass and starlight, suspended over darkness that was not frightening, only endless. Alina stopped, awe flooding her chest. It's beautiful, she whispered. Arian stood beside her, his expression unreadable but gentle. This is the bridge of voices, he said quietly. Across it, you will hear every version of yourself you were ever taught to be. She hesitated. Do I have to cross? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied her face, not as a king commanding, but as someone who deeply respected choice. You don't have to do anything, he finally said. But if you don't walk forward, you will forever wonder what truth waited on the other side. Oh, she stepped onto the bridge. The glass beneath her feet glowed softly with each step, like starlight waking up beneath her touch. Halfway across, the wind shifted, carrying whispers. Not monstrous, not loud, just familiar. Too familiar. And be grateful. Don't cause trouble. Think of the family. This is what good girls do. Her shoulders tightened. Each sentence sounded like a memory. Dinners, lectures, quiet expectations said with loving smiles but heavy pressure. The whispers wrapped around her like threads, tugging gently, asking her to go back. She slowed, heart beating fast. They sound so kind, she murmured, and yet they hurt. Arian's voice floated across the bridge, steady and compassionate. Control rarely arrives with cruelty. It arrives dressed as love. His words cut through the whispered voices like light through fog. The whispers grew softer, then shifted again, harsher this time. Who do you think you are? Everyone will talk. No one will love you after this. You are selfish. She closed her eyes, tears slipping free. These voices didn't just want obedience, they wanted her to feel guilty for wanting a life of her own. For a moment, she almost turned back. The safety of silence tugged at her like gravity. But then, somewhere underneath the noise, another voice trembled alive, small, quiet, fragile. Please don't leave me behind. Her eyes flew open. The voice wasn't from outside. It was from inside. She looked down, and in the reflection of the glass bridge, she saw herself as a child, maybe 8 years old, standing barefoot, clutching a small stuffed toy, eyes wide with longing. No fear, no judgment, only a deep, aching desire to be chosen. Alina's heart cracked open. Everything around her faded, the whispers, the bridge, the sky, leaving only that reflection and the quiet truth echoing through her. As she knelt slowly, touching the glowing glass, the child version of herself in the reflection looked up hopeful, fragile, waiting. I forgot you, Alina whispered, voice shaking. I kept choosing everyone else and I left you behind. Tears fell freely now, not heavy with panic, but cleansing like rain washing dust off something sacred. The child didn't speak, but her eyes softened as if forgiving instantly, as if forgiveness had been waiting for this moment for years. Behind her, Arian remained silent. He understood something sacred was happening, something no king, no magic, no power could rush or interrupt. His presence felt like a shield, quiet, kind, watching, protecting the space she needed to heal. Slowly, the whispers faded. The bridge brightened. And Alina stood again, not stronger in the way warriors are strong, but steadier in the way truth makes people steady. When she reached the end of the bridge, the world shifted back into stone, another chamber, smaller, softer, lit by gentle golden light. It felt warmer here, almost like home. She turned to Arian, eyes red but calm. I think, she said softly, For the first time, I don't hate myself for wanting something different. A faint relief touched his features, so subtle it almost hurt to see. That, he murmured, is the beginning of freedom. Before she could answer, a sound echoed through the chamber. Not the wedding, not the elevator, something else. A low, distant heartbeat. A steady, ancient, calling. The golden light darkened slightly, the ground humming beneath their feet. Arian's expression changed, alert, thoughtful, almost protective again. We are no longer alone, he said quietly. Something has awakened because of your choice. Her throat tightened. Is it dangerous? He didn't lie, and he didn't soften the truth. It depends, he said gently, on whether it believes you truly belong here. The heartbeat grew louder, slow, patient, powerful, as if something unseen was moving closer, recognizing her presence, deciding what she was. And somewhere deep in the chamber ahead, something opened. An end of part 3. Agar Chaho, main part 4 Dune or Zayada mystery, deeper emotional connection, gentle tension, plus another strong cliffhanger, same safe tone, same paragraph style. The sound was no longer just a heartbeat. It was a presence, slow and steady, echoing through the chamber like something ancient remembering how to breathe. The golden light dimmed into a deeper amber glow, shadows stretching softly across the stone floor. Alina felt the vibration through her shoes, not painful, not threatening, more like standing beside the ocean at night and realizing the tide has a life of its own. Her hands trembled again, but this time the fear wasn't about being trapped. It was about being seen by something far larger than herself. Arian stepped slightly in front of her, not blocking her, not claiming control, just standing there as if to say, if anything comes, it will meet me first. His presence grounded the room. Do not run, he said quietly. Whatever approaches is tied to your choice. If you flee, it will follow you as fear. If you face it, it may become wisdom. His words settled into her chest like steady breath. She nodded slowly, even though every instinct begged her to hide. The chamber ahead opened into a circular room with tall pillars carved in delicate patterns, vines, moons, hands reaching toward the sky. At the center stood an immense stone door shaped like two wings pressed together, sealed by threads of faint, glowing light. With each heartbeat, those threads pulsed softly, like veins carrying memory instead of blood. Alina took a cautious step closer, curiosity and dread woven together. What is this? She whispered. Arian studied the door with quiet respect. This is the archive of choices, he said. Every soul who crosses this path leaves a truth behind and takes one truth forward. The idea felt heavy but sacred. Will it show me something? She asked. He hesitated, not out of doubt but out of care. It will show you only what you are ready to carry, he answered gently. Truth does not force itself, it invites. The heartbeat deepened, echoing now from inside that great door as if something behind it recognized her. Memories stirred in her mind, moments she had buried, conversations she had avoided, nights she had cried quietly so no one would notice. A cold, trembling silence filled her throat. What if I don't like what it shows? She asked. Arian's gaze softened, the old sorrow in his eyes turning warm. Truth is rarely kind, he said softly, but it is always merciful. The glowing threads along the stone wings brightened. Slowly, gently they loosened, not as if broken, but as if granting permission. The great door shivered once and then began to part, releasing a slow breath of cool air that smelled of rain, old parchment, and something strangely familiar like the scent of a childhood room long abandoned. Alina's heart raced, yet her feet carried her forward without needing to be told. Inside, the chamber was quiet. Not empty, just quiet in a way that felt listening. Walls rose high and were covered in faint, silver markings that shimmered like constellations. In the center stood a single pedestal with a small, simple book resting upon it. No gems, no gold, nothing grand, only worn leather and softness around the edges like it had been touched many times with gentle fingers. As she approached slowly, "Is this mine?" she asked. Arian nodded. Your life, he said softly, as it might have been written and as it has been erased. She hesitated before lifting the cover. The first page was blank. Not empty, blank in a deliberate way, like silence waiting to become music. She turned the next page. This time, faint writing appeared, not ink, but light fading in and out. Scenes formed briefly, then dissolved again. She saw a younger version of herself studying late at night, dreaming of traveling, wanting to create something beautiful. She saw herself laughing with friends, learning, exploring. Then she saw hands gently closing the book over those dreams, polite voices saying, "Be practical, don't risk, don't disappoint anyone." Each page showed a moment she had chosen safety over honesty, and each time a soft light disappeared from the page. Her throat burned. "I kept saying yes," she whispered, while everything I loved slowly disappeared. Arian remained still, not judging, not advising, only witnessing. "It takes great strength," he said quietly, "to look at the parts of your life where you abandoned yourself." As she reached the middle of the book, here the pages trembled. One page showed the wedding, the aisle, the flowers, the future everyone expected. The writing beneath it flickered weakly, as if even the book itself struggled to believe in that story. The next page, however, was brighter, not easy, not perfect, but alive. She saw herself alone in a small apartment, learning to take care of herself, making mistakes, choosing work that mattered to her. She saw tears and laughter and slow, real peace. For the first time, the book did not erase the scene. It simply stayed. Her fingers rested on it as if touching a heartbeat. And then, near the last pages, she found something she didn't expect. A faint sketch. Not clear. Not finished. A tall figure in a long coat standing beside her in a field at dusk, not holding her, not claiming her, simply walking beside her as equals. Her breath caught. She looked up, eyes finding Arian. He didn't smile. He didn't lean closer. But there was a softness there, a hesitation, as if even he had not expected to see himself in her story. "Does this mean," she began, voice shaking. He lifted a hand gently. "It means nothing has been decided," he said softly. "The heart sometimes writes possibilities, not promises." That honesty mattered more than any romantic answer could have. He never tried to claim destiny. He never made himself the center. That alone made him feel more trustworthy than anyone she had ever known. Suddenly, the chamber trembled again. Not like before, this was deeper. The silver markings on the walls dimmed. The heartbeat quickened, slow no longer, but loud, urgent, as if something beyond the chamber had awakened fully. Arian's expression sharpened, protective tension rising through his calm. "We stayed too long," he murmured. "The worlds are trying to correct themselves." The book fluttered violently as if caught in invisible wind. Pages turned on their own, faster, faster, until they reached the very end. A final blank page. But this time the blankness felt alive. Waiting, expectant. And then, across the center of the emptiness, a line of dark, shimmering script slowly burned into existence. "What you choose next will rewrite everything." Alina stepped back, breath unsteady. The chamber darkened. The wings of the stone door began closing on their own. The heartbeat grew thunderous now, shaking the floor beneath them. Arian moved beside her, voice low and gentle yet urgent. "Stay with me," he said softly. "Whatever happens now, do not let fear decide for you." The light vanished. The door slammed shut. The ground beneath them dropped, and they were pulled into darkness, not falling, but being carried somewhere she had not yet learned to imagine. The darkness was not cold. It felt like drifting through night clouds, weightless, silent, slow, as if the world had wrapped them in a deep breath. Alina didn't scream. She simply held still, listening, trusting the strange softness around them. Somewhere beside her, she sensed Arian, steady, grounded, calm, like a lighthouse quietly guiding ships through fog. Then, slowly, light began to bloom. Soft at first, gentle, like sunrise touching the horizon. The darkness faded, revealing a wide open field beneath an early dawn sky. Dew sparkled on the grass, the air smelled of earth and rain, and birds called quietly in the distance. There were no walls, no corridors, no stone doors, only freedom stretching endlessly in every direction. Alina stood in the middle of the field in her wedding dress, no longer torn, no longer heavy. It felt lighter now, as if it no longer belonged to anyone's expectations but her own. She turned slowly, absorbing the quiet beauty around her. Where are we? She whispered. Arian appeared a few steps away, not emerging dramatically, not with power, simply being there as if he had always belonged to places that healed instead of frightened. His voice was soft. Well, we are standing where the next page begins. She let the words sink in. The panic that once lived inside her chest felt smaller now, replaced by something calm and unfamiliar. Self-trust. The wind moved gently across the field, brushing her face like a blessing. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, she turned to him. The book said everything depends on my next choice. Her voice trembled, but it wasn't fear, it was honesty. What if I choose wrong? Arian looked toward the horizon, his eyes carrying centuries of quiet understanding. There are no perfect choices, he said gently. Only honest ones, the ones made from fear trap us, the ones made from truth free us even when they hurt. She thought of her family, the whispers, the wedding hall, the life that was safe but silent. And she thought of the girl on the glass bridge, the small voice that had begged not to be left behind again. I want to live, she said softly, not perform, not obey, just live. The moment she spoke, the air brightened not with magic but with clarity. The field felt warmer, the sky opened wider, and she realized something. For the first time, she wasn't apologizing for wanting her own life. A fragile smile touched her lips, then a realization crept in, a gentle but painful. Does this mean I have to go back to my world? Arian didn't answer immediately. A faint sadness moved across his features, quiet, respectful, never possessive. Yes, he said softly, this world does not exist to replace your life. It exists to guide you back to it differently. Her heart tightened. She looked at him, the vampire king with moonlit eyes, the quiet sorrow, the compassion that had never once demanded anything from her. And you, she whispered. His voice was warm, steady, sincere. I walk beside crossroads, not inside the roads themselves. Our worlds rarely hold each other for long. There was no drama in his tone, no tragic romance, just truth, gentle and dignified. But truth can still ache. She swallowed, blinking back tears. I don't want to forget this, she said. I don't want to forget you. A faint smile touched his lips. Real change doesn't fade, he replied, and neither do people who arrive when courage wakes. He lifted his hand, not touching her, only opening his palm to the air. The field shimmered. Far ahead, a familiar shape appeared. An elevator door. A simple, quiet, waiting. This time, it didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a passage back to a life she had finally chosen. Her breath trembled. She looked once more at the horizon, then at Arian. If I leave that wedding, she said slowly, people will talk. Some will be angry. I may be alone. For a while, he nodded. But loneliness born from honesty heals. Loneliness born from self-betrayal never does. She closed her eyes. Oh, she understood. With soft steps, she walked toward the elevator. Each footstep felt steadier, more her own. When she reached the door, she turned back one last time. He stood where he had been from the beginning, calm, proud, quietly protective. Oh, thank you, she whispered. His answer was simple, yet full of meaning. Live kindly, live bravely, and never abandon the child who asked you to stay. The doors opened. The light flooded in. Oh, she stepped inside. The elevator hummed gently, not rushing, not forcing, simply carrying her upward. When the doors opened again, she was standing in the quiet back corridor of the wedding venue. Music drifted faintly. Voices murmured somewhere far away. But she was different. She lifted her veil, took a breath, and walked not to the altar, not to the expectations, but straight out the back doors into morning air, into her own life. No running, no panic, just peace. Later, there would be conversations, questions, disappointment, time. But there would also be small, beautiful moments. Coffee alone at sunrise, laughter returning slowly, choices made with honesty instead of fear. Life wouldn't be easy, but it would finally belong to her. And sometimes, late at night, when the world grew quiet, she would feel a calm presence watching gently from the edge of shadow, not owning, not controlling, only wishing her well. The vampire king never appeared again, but she carried his words like light inside her. Real love never begins as a cage, and real courage is choosing yourself without hatred. And with that truth, her life finally began.